Hello everyone, this is Tim again, and I'm going to do another overview video just to the midnight setting. I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of the Middle-earth role-playing, or MERP, series. And I've actually never played this game. I played Rolemaster a lot when I was younger, and we did have a lot of influence from Middle-earth in those campaigns when we started out. But I want to just show you what I have and the beautiful Angus Mcbride covers that are on the outside of pretty much every single one of these books, I believe. Some of them are probably from different artists, but I've always been very impressed with the artwork in these ones. So, this is the first edition of Middle-earth Role-Playing. I want to get the second edition of it eventually, but it has to be like a pretty decent price. I've been going to like half-price books a lot. In Monroeville, it's pretty close to here. In hopes of finding it, but yet I have not found it. But yeah, it's a D100 system. You roll a D100, add your modifiers. So there's a little bit of math involved, and you have to reference charts. But of all the D100 games that I.C.E put out, this is one of the simplest. There is Harp, that I've done a review of a long time ago. Rolemaster is towards the heavier rules, crunchiness on this end of the spectrum, I guess. But Middle-earth is sort of it's simple. It's probably a little bit more complicated than like D20 perhaps, but maybe not. There's a lot less things to keep track of. It really just comes down to skills and combat a lot of times, and knowing the setting inside and out. But yeah, I've never really played MERP. I've played the more simpler version called the Lord of the Rings adventure game that I've also reviewed recently. Well, not recently, probably about 2 years ago now. But yeah, so I love these source books, though. I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth, as you're probably aware of, even though I don't do a lot of videos on them. But there's all kinds of awesome supplements called things like Hands of the Healer that basically goes through and just gives you tons of herbs and plants and pastes and healing things that you can grind up. And I like that they're using words that sound like Tolkien. They probably went back to to Welsh and things like that to find different words for different herbs that you can use. What's interesting too about these games is that a lot of them have Middle-earth, the Wizards collectible card game, sort of printouts in the back that supposedly you can cut these out. They have the backs of the cards on the other side. So that's an interesting thing about this, because at the time I was into those as well. I collected those for a long time. Never was really able to find anybody to play with me, but yeah, this is nice if you're into herbs and you want some alternative method to healing than just chugging a bunch of healing potions. Here's another great source book, and I believe these are from the ones with the red banner at the top that say Middle-earth, or the second edition. But this is Treasures of Middle-earth, and this is just chock full of interesting items that have a background within Middle-earth. They talk about the NPCs and characters that dealt with them, owned them. If the weapon went from one character to another character, it talks about that. There's a lot of made-up weapons that are not in the books or the Silmarillion or the Hobbit that Middle-earth or that Iron Crown Enterprises came up with and made, but they all seem to fit the theme and feel of Middle-earth. The artwork is pretty good as well. It's all black and white for the most part, and it's mostly done, I believe, by Liz Danforth, and she's one of my favorite Tolkien artists. I don't know if I've really talked about Liz Danforth before, but when I think about hobbits and halflings and like Halfling Gate that came out with 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, I think of her artwork. I think back to this time in my life when a lot of the artwork I was watching that I was looking at was from her. Like, for instance, here is Frodo looking in and seeing the Eye of Sauron in Galadriel's mirror. But yeah, great items, great information. Honestly, you could probably take items out of here, reskin them, and put them into any fantasy campaign. Another book that came out was Northwestern Middle-earth Gazetteer. Now, this came with a map, and I butchered this thing when I was a kid. I tried to put all the maps together with tape, and they didn't really line up right, so it looked like just absolute hell. But this is great to look at different sections and see, what culture is there, what the population is, you know, that sort of thing. There's little maps of towns and villages that you can use, places around the Shire, things like that. So it's a handy little reference thing to go with a giant map of Middle-earth, perhaps, that you print out and put up on the wall. Now this was one of my favorite ones that I had, Minas Tirith. And I just try to see if the maps are still in here. These maps I just really, really loved as a kid. I put these up on my wall. It shows this is like half of the city. You can see, I guess you can hold it like this. You can see the various levels of the city, where the walls are, how you have to go back and forth to get all the way up to the top. You can see the mountainous sort of tower that's sticking out of the front there. I love that all the little towns and buildings are colored, and there really isn't a keyed map like per se on these maps, but when you go into the book, it goes into details about what level places are, what's there. There's another map. And RPG products just don't seem to have this sort of lovingly crafted detail in their games anymore. Especially with maps and handouts and supplemental material that you can look at the table, and that's something I miss about RPG products. Oh, that's right. I don't actually remember where I got this map from, but I have two of them. I don't even know if you're going to be able to get it all in there. This is a map of Middle-earth, if I can hold it up straight for you. I don't remember if this came with the Middle-earth stuff or what. A lot of these books are just, they've been sitting on my shelf for a while, and I really don't remember the wheres and why-fors of everything, but I always liked having these maps available at the table for whenever I did run the Lord of the Rings adventure game. Back then, things were a little bit simpler, and I wasn't as complicated, and, I got my nostalgia glasses on. But, yeah, this is great. It has lots of maps, lots of, Liz Danforth illustrations in here of various NPCs, talking about what their goals are, motivations. It just shows you various locations and what those locations are. So this is a great supplement for a city and how it's detailed, all the NPCs that are running around in it. And again, you could probably skin this and put it in some other fantasy campaign and not have too much of a problem with it. It's just, I love Liz Danforth. She's just awesome. Those black and white illustrations are very clean and simple, and yet they have a sort of complexity to them. But, yep, that was Minas Tirith. And let's see what else we got here. Here's another one of my favorites. Creatures of Middle-earth. And my favorite part about this book is that it goes through and talks a lot about the unique dragons that existed in the past and what they were like. It talks about like fire drakes and other things like that. Some of the artwork. Yeah, this is Danforth again. She has a lot of art in here. But Keith Hershey Jr. was talking on his channel about some of your favorite bestiaries or bestiaries. And the one thing that I really like about this one is that each of the creatures, like the animals, it shows the giant map of Middle-earth. And this was, mostly constructed by I.C.E. The rest of the stuff that doesn't include the Northwestern section. But it goes and shows you where all the animals are located. And I think it's a great idea for a setting bestiary to show you where they are located, where their travel patterns are, and it's just another layer of detail that I enjoyed about that. Now, these ones I acquired from a friend, and he really blew me away by giving me these. I haven't really experienced any of these myself. They've just been sitting on my shelf, but I'll get through and show them to you real quick. Forest of Tears. And let's see, I don't know if I can figure out where this is. But yeah, they're just adventure modules. They're not very thick. They're pretty thin. But, We got some Ghost Warriors. These look fun. Paths of the Dead. Aragorn's little situation. Eric. We have Pirates of Pelargir. And I think that'd be something that'd be fun to explore in a Middle-earth setting, is to be those pirates that sort of have an alliance with Sauron. I think that'd be kind of a different take to bring to a Middle-earth campaign. We have Woses of the Black Wood. Keep tilting these here. The Mouths of Entwash. And that's one of my favorite illustrations. I think that's Angus Mcbride again. I don't see his. Yep, it's carved into the boat there. Just look at that. That's probably a ghoul of some sort. The Shade of the Sinking Plain. You know what? I don't know. I actually don't know if this is a Middle-earth one. It looks a little bit different. Alright, we have Raiders of Cardolan. And again, looking like they're going with some more pirate themes. Hazards of the Herod Wood. And the last one that I have from the Middle-earth line is Ghosts of the Southern Anduin. And look at that. Look at that thing just lurking back there. Just, you know. But yeah, this is my Middle-earth collection. It's pretty substantial. I have other things for. There was a Lord of the Rings game put out by Decipher that I have. You know, that's a little bit different because they use a lot of the art from the Lord of the Rings movies. There's the Lord of the Rings Adventure game I mentioned, and there's also the One Ring that I have that I haven't really delved into all that much. I haven't really explored it. I haven't played it. It's one of those things that, you know, I think I should get into, and I just haven't had time to read and explore. But there's lots of options out there if you want to get into Middle-earth, see what it's about. If you can't find these Middle-earth role-playing games, there's other ones out there that are free. You just really have to just look out online. You know, type in Middle-earth or RPG or Lord of the Rings RPG, and you know those free RPGs will pop up. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll talk to you guys later.